Today, we're diving into a really fascinating new study that connects autism to the very evolution of the human brain. We're talking about the story of what gives us our unique spark.
So let's just start with the big question right up front. What if the very evolutionary path that gave us our greatest gifts, things like language and deep abstract thought, also created the conditions for neurodiversity, including autism?
To even begin to unpack that, we first have to wrap our heads around a pretty surprising paradox that sits right at the heart of our own brains. Okay, so here's the paradox. We have this incredible ability to create art, to reason, to build these complex societies, but get this, we don't actually have any special human-only brain cells. Our brains are built from the exact same fundamental cell types as a mouse's brain. So, if the parts are the same, what makes us so different?
Well, the answer, scientists are pretty sure, lies in the programming. It's not about the types of cells we have, it's about how our genes are expressed within those cells. Think of it like genetic software. This programming is what tells our neurons how to connect and how to function, creating the ridiculously complex circuitry that powers the human mind.
So researchers decided to track how this programming changed over millions of years. And that led them to a really crucial insight about, of all things, the speed of evolution. The basic idea is pretty simple. If a gene or a protein is used everywhere in the body, if it's essential for everything, it can't really change much without causing huge problems. It's what scientists call highly conserved. But if a protein is rare, it has way more evolutionary freedom. A little tweak here or there won't break the whole system, which means it can adapt and evolve much, much faster. And this led them to a brilliant question. Okay, if this is true for proteins, could the same rule apply to our brain cells? Could it be that the rarest, most specialized neurons in our brains were the ones that had the freedom to evolve the fastest and ultimately gave us our unique human abilities?
So to test this idea, the researchers started following the genetic trail, looking for clues in the most rapidly evolving parts of the human genome.
And they knew exactly where to look, in these things called human accelerated regions, or HARs. These are stretches of our DNA that just went into overdrive, changing incredibly fast after our lineage split from other primates. And what's really important here is that scientists already knew that these HARs often contain genes linked to a susceptibility to autism.
And bingo, they found their smoking gun. In one specific, very rare type of neuron, the genetic programming had evolved at a blistering pace. It's called the layer 2/3 intratelencephalic neuron, or let's just call it the L2/3 IT neuron.
And these are not just any old neurons. As neurologist Dr. Luke Barr explains, they are absolutely critical for the stuff we consider most human. They're the ones that form these long-range connections, integrating information all across the brain, powering abstract thought, social understanding, and, of course, language.
This discovery, this is where it all comes together, building towards the study's really profound central idea, this concept of an evolutionary trade-off.
So here's the theory the researchers are proposing. They're suggesting that the rapid, amazing evolution of these specific neurons, the very changes that gave us our incredible cognitive advantage, might have also introduced new vulnerabilities.
In other words, our greatest strength might also be linked to our vulnerabilities. The genetic tweaks that supercharged our brains could be two sides of the very same evolutionary coin, with autism being one of the possible outcomes. But hold on, because that's not the only theory on the table. Another expert suggests we need to look at a totally different piece of the puzzle, the brain's absolutely massive energy bill.
This second theory, which comes from Dr. John J. Gargis, doesn't focus on a trade-off. It focuses on a potential mismatch.
Now just think about this staggering fact for a second. Your brain makes up only about 2% of your body's weight, but it burns through a full 20% of your total energy. It is an incredibly expensive organ to run. So Dr. Gargis argues that as our brains rapidly evolved and expanded, the metabolic systems that fuel them basically struggled to keep up. He suggests that conditions like autism might actually come from this mismatch, where even tiny issues with getting enough energy to brain cells during critical periods of development can't meet the brain's crazy high demands.
So where does all this leave us? We've got two really compelling, though pretty different, ideas about the deep, deep origins of autism.
All right, let's pull all these threads together for a second. We've seen that what makes our brains special isn't different parts, but different genetic programming. A key player here is that rare neuron, the L2/3 IT, that evolved incredibly fast in humans, and that those same rapid changes are linked to autism.
This gives us two big ideas to think about. Theory 1 is the evolutionary trade-off, maybe the price of genius. And Theory 2 is the metabolic mismatch, where our brain's energy demands simply outstripped its fuel supply.
Ultimately, what's so powerful is that both of these theories point toward a huge shift in perspective. As Dr. Barr says, this research suggests that instead of thinking of autism as a disorder, we can start to see it as a variation that is fundamentally tied to the very neural systems that make us uniquely human.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If the origins of neurodiversity are a natural consequence of our own evolution, a part of what gave us our spark in the first place, how does that change the way we think about the human mind itself?